Hello, I'm Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you. We are here today to discuss the impact of the pandemic on the way we live, work, and play, and how it shifted a greater importance on the function of space. While there definitely has been a movement towards this way of thinking for much more than a year now, this time period has brought to the forefront a real need to understand those whom we design for in order to create valuable solutions for their environments, both inside and out. Ultimately, the pandemic has offered us a great opportunity to impart positive change on the way we design and who we design for. We are going to be delving into how one designs more thoughtfully and purposefully in both the residential and hospitality sectors with Michael K. Chen, Principal of Michael K. Chen Architecture, Audra Tuskus, Vice President of Global Design Strategies for Marriott International, and Jared Della Valle, CEO and founder of Alloy. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So we all spent a lot of time this past year thinking about space because we've been stuck in space and how space is being utilized. And sort of jumping off that point and really thinking broadly, what do you think were some of the major issues faced by the design community in this past year in relation to space, and how did it affect your approach to how you are designing?
Maybe I'll start from a broad perspective or a broad response to the question, because I think my approach in terms of working with hospitality spaces is really kind of, there's an element of future casting. So we have to, because we're thinking about strategies and design ideas for what's to come. And what that means for us is that we have to, we're watching travel trends and consumer behavior. And, so obviously what we've seen over the last couple of years has been a complete anomaly in the hospitality space, but what we definitely see is an extreme optimism for what's ahead. So we're trying to capture the spirit of how people are going to begin to travel again, how they're going to begin to occupy hospitality spaces. So we know that, and based on what we've seen, obviously people's concern for safety and cleanliness and, those kind of ideas have been immediately at the forefront of many hospitality spaces. But beyond that, because those are obvious, but beyond that, what we have seen is people's behavior change. And so there is a more of a demand for privacy, more of a demand for people to congregate in bubbles of privacy, friends and family, that kind of thing. More of a focus on what we call bleisure, which is a blurred line between business travel and leisure travel, because we're now very facile at being virtual. We can kind of go with families or friends on vacations, but still use some of that time to be working. So that has different connotations for the spaces that we provide in design. And then of course the auto market, anywhere in hospitality you can get by car, that has been popular. So we've been really focused on those spaces and really excited how people are approaching the idea of coming back to engaging with those spaces.
I think for us, because so much of our work is in residential, there's such an expectation, particularly after the last year, that the home is sort of the centerpiece of one's existence. And I think that's been really strongly foregrounded in sort of all of our own lived experiences in the last few years. Is there's the expectation that one's home, whether it's a single family house or whether it's an apartment, is going to do so much more for you and be able to accommodate so many more things. So there's more storage, there's more function, there's more activity, there's sort of more and more and more. And I think that the design challenge for those of us who are working in that sphere is really to think about how to integrate the solutions that are out there for that, and to kind of imagine new ones, and to do it in a way that doesn't completely overwhelm, the other sort of companion expectation, which of course is that we're looking for our homes to be refuges and sort of sanctuaries from sort of the craziness of what is happening outside. So those sort of competing impulses of sort of packing more in and also somehow finding ways to strip away and reduce and refine to something that is simpler or kind of cleaner or more calm has been sort of the big challenge for us.
I actually love that because there's a tighter connection to how we're thinking about hotel rooms in what you've just said, because of this greater need for something to do many things. A table has to do many things. It has to be your desk, it has to be your dining surface, like this notion of paring down and having less, but having more economy or more quality in the things we put in spaces, that's definitely gonna stick.
Jared, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this year's been a challenge, but the I think acceptance of space historically is now in question, right? The opportunity is to take the anxiety and pessimism and the scrutiny which we all experienced of our individual spaces and to actually lead design sessions with more clarity, right? Where the status quo is no longer acceptable. And you can lead discussions with people who are now super critical of all of the minutiae and details, right? Because you've been embedded and you've been living with these things willingly or unwillingly in such a way that we found that, insofar as we too had to predict the future a bit, right? We're making homes for buyers that we don't yet know. We have to anticipate the future, which means, the ability to leverage this moment as we transition into optimism from a moment of pessimism into clearer communication has really been rewarding.
To understand, is this space going to have to be for entertaining and living and cooking and working and educating? And, how do you build upon that? And Michael, I actually want to start with you because you described the work that you do as creating this like intricately choreographed space that is unexpected, hyper useful, and intelligent. So really, how are you designing a space that serves a real purpose?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think that sort of goes to this sort of contradiction or kind of conflict that almost is at the center of so much of the work that we're doing, where sort of additional function is being loaded into residential spaces, but at the same time, there's this expectation of quality, right? To Jared's point. So I'm actually sitting in a micro apartment concept that we designed for Häfele, and the idea of scenarios or sort of scenarios for living and kind of designing around scenarios is really something that animated this project. So, particularly in an urban environment, in a dense environment, right, where space is at a premium, there's the expectation that there's not only are there no objects that do one thing, there are no spaces that only do one thing, right? So I think the idea of the scenario becomes incredibly important to really have a deep understanding as to how functions and activities in the home unfold over the course of the day, and to think about how to choreograph the design elements to sort of participate in those transitions. So in the case of an environment like this, everything is moving, but not all the time, right? Like there want to be, we think about them almost as gestures. Like there are simplified gestures that have large or outsized impact on the way that the space is configured or the way that the space is lived. So it might be as simple as in the morning something slides away. In this case, there's a table that opens and it sort of reveals a kitchen, right? But in a small space where a kitchen can really kind of take over visually the rest of the day, the table slides over the kitchen and you don't really see it until you need to open it again. So it's really about sort of having sensitivity to when certain functions are in need of activation in a space and when they might be engaged and when it's appropriate for them to sort of go quiet and kind of go away.
I mean, Jared, you touched on it briefly or just earlier about sort of you're designing for like the hypothetical owner, the hypothetical sort of client. So, but I know that you have a lot of experience as an architect working in the private sector that you sort of infuse in the work you're doing now. But I want to know sort of how do you approach the design of the residential projects so that they are thoughtful and they do ultimately service the needs of a client that you may not know who they are yet.
Yeah, I mean, as my partner says, we don't make cupcakes, right? We can't throw them away if we make a bad batch. And so we are making homes for people. It's arguably the single biggest asset someone will acquire and get to enjoy, which is, you know, both home and an investment. And so we actually try to take the time and have people move into each of the apartments, right, in their mind with their things, and we kind of audit the apartment so that when somebody moves in, their life, their palette, their things become the priority, not our work.
I mean, I want to jump ahead then. So like you do, so ultimately it's in those like details and you spend a lot of time on those subtle details. But do you find sort of the current sort of potential homeowner is really interested in the quality of the craftsmanship and the detail that you put in? And, you know, sometimes I realize it's the details you don't see, right? As much details that you do. Or do they just want stuff like the granite countertops or whatever the thing is now that people want in these apartments they're purchasing?
Well, look, I don't know if it's so much pandemic based or politically based, but I think people don't like to be fooled. And they don't like to be taken for granted. And so this sincerity and honesty of material choices and detailing is something that has really come to the forefront over this. I think, you know, it is not about, you know, this is the finest onyx from here, right? Because someone is already thinking, oh my God, what was the mining process for that? But at the same time, they don't like to be fooled with the, you know, faux bois version of that either, right? And so, yeah, I think there's this sincerity and honesty approach, which is actually why my office is also the real estate broker. We also do sales for ourselves because we want to convey the story about our homes through the lens of an architect, the maker, right? Not through the lens of a broker who's saying, look at how luxurious this is, right? At the end of the day, we're making space for people. And so we will never use words that are, this is the nicest. We won't qualify our work. Right? We're making homes. We talk about space and light and other things. It's a different mindset. And I think in particular today, people are seeking the truth and they want to touch and feel it for themselves. And it is that is resonating most. And part of that approach comes from us communicating ourselves about that work.
It's such a refreshing kind of perspective to hear from someone, you know, working in the development space, because I think that something that we all understand very well is that the sort of standard luxury developer formulas that, you know, may have worked before, they simply won't do anymore. And so the idea that homes that are you know, in a way designed for sale, right, that are designed as products and assets, like that they are configured specifically to be the frame for consumers and residents to sort of project their own lives into those spaces is so wonderful to hear.
Well, I was going to actually say, so that's sort of the residential perspective of it, and obviously designing spaces for someone who's going to buy into it or move into it. But Audra, you certainly have a different perspective from the hospitality side, and I know that you spend a lot of time sort of responding to what sort of the hospitality guest market is. Maybe it's a little questionable right now, and you know, you really influence the design strategy for multiple brands under this Marriott umbrella. So, but what does that ultimately mean when it comes to the current design of the space? And also, I know you want to speak to the creation of services, because that's really part of what hospitality is for the properties you work on.
The first way I have to respond to that is that this conversation around materiality and choice and the details that my colleagues are referencing is very relevant to the hospitality space. And particularly the way that you look at branding. And so that touches a little bit of what Jared was talking about in terms of, like, you know, I've worked in residential development as well. And there is a there's a very bizarre way in which those choices are made, not by the occupants and not by the architects and designers, but by people who are deciding what consumers are going to want, right? And then you sort of get this product in a lot of those scenarios that is just speaking to sort of a mediocrity, because it's not for anyone specific. It's not chosen by a great design eye, right? Or a person with a strong point of view. The thing that we get to do in the hospitality space that is very fun is, for one, hotel design is very temporal. So we get to act now and current, or what we think is now and current a few years from now as we're designing the strategies, and then we get to change it in another 5 or 7 years. But going back to the conversation that was happening around materiality and why that's relevant, it's the same in the hospitality space for a certain brand of consumers that a large swath of consumers, actually, because nobody wants to be fooled anymore. There's one of the brands I look after is W Hotels. And when I say that, I'm sure that conjures like a particular aesthetic in your mind, and that's not relevant to today's consumers. So we're really trying to shift that brand into a space that feels a bit more authentic and a bit more luxurious, a luxury that is appropriate for that brand. There will always, and by the way, I deal specifically in the space of luxury within Merit, so that's why I'm coming with these examples. But there will always be the traditional luxury consumer, like the Ritz-Carlton consumer, that doesn't move very much in its play of materiality and elements that you put in this space. But other brands, other projects that have more forward-looking consumers, those are going to shift in the same ways that Michael's talking about with his residential approach, and that Jared's talking about with the development approach, because you kind of have to anticipate. And most successfully, you have to have a point of view. So what I love about the conversation here within my colleagues is like, they have a specific point of view about the way they're approaching their work that that says they know their consumer and they're focused on that. And I love that as information for design, right?
Well, I wanted to bring up, because it's come up in a lot of the discussions that I've really had in the past year with the design community, and it's really the topic of well-being and how space can impact one's physical, mental, and emotional state. Are you finding yourselves, both on the residential and the hospitality side, more mindful about the well-being of your clients, and how are you addressing that in some of the work that you're doing?
I mean, we certainly are, because so much of our work has to do with individual clients. There's a high degree of attentiveness to how spaces are sort of very finely, or how spaces themselves are sort of attentive, right? How they're kind of attuned to the needs of their occupants. And so sometimes that is about control. It's about being able to have power or lighting in the appropriate place, so that the functional parameters of the way that spaces actually work really kind of suit the people who will occupy them. And so there's sort of there's nothing more frustrating than expecting there to be something and then not finding that it's not going to be there. So we spend a lot of time studying and kind of querying the clients about their habits, their sort of lived experience in spaces, and trying to, as Audra sort of describing, kind of anticipate a whole host of needs and scenarios for how they will utilize space. And I think that there's also a significant amount of concern that we give to sort of the nuts and bolts of architecture, really thinking about issues of environmental health, thinking about issues of intelligence around energy, the kind of miracle of LEDs, that it's so low energy, that that in many of our projects, if we insulate them properly, they use almost no electricity at all. And I think that that's really exciting, and it kind of also speaks to the way that the design is a way of helping people's environments kind of conform to their value set, right? Like not just their sort of expectations around what is beautiful or what is luxurious or what is comfortable, but also what they think is ethical and what they think is kind of correct in terms of how they want to live their lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredibly key. And across all sectors, I would say what Michael is describing as nuts and bolts of architecture, the sustainable choices and things that align with people's value set, that becomes a value proposition for a consumer, and they make decisions based upon those things being present.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point for us, insofar as we might be making 40 or 50 homes or several hundred homes at once. We have to focus on community as a part of well-being, right? There's I think, contemporary practice in meditation about thinking about what you're grateful for on a daily basis, and this aspect of community versus isolation and shared value set has been a big proposition for our work and instigator. For 168 Plymouth Street, we created a fund called the Better Brooklyn Fund, where we're taking a percentage of the proceeds and donating them to make grants in broader Brooklyn. And a lot of our buyers are interested in that value set, where the control of how those grants are being given out is in fact a recognition of the privilege of home ownership, right? And they're saying, I recognize that I have something that many other people may not have, or people might be food insecure or need job training or other health and well-being issues, where the building will actually instigate the making of grants, and they'll have a whole separate board that is just about the community and caring. Or to Audra's point, the value set around our Flatbush work, where we are, proposing to build the first all-electric skyscraper and the first passive house schools, and knowing that my generation of renters, which are actually my children's age, right, who are in their teens, are going to make choices on where to live based on a shared value set, not just because it has a nicer gym or a slightly better view, but because there's no fossil fuels affiliated with the building, right? There's just a different sentiment about how people might choose to spend, which is more relevant today than ever.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it definitely sounds like sort of someone's individual well-being, sustainability, and obviously doing good and social impact all sort of go hand in hand. And, I know that you guys had mentioned in an earlier conversation that, as much as a lot of design firms are sort of really focused on specifying sustainable products, they really have to stop and think about sort of those companies that they're working with as well, just to make sure that they're socially responsible, correct? Yeah,
I mean, the scale of our work is such that we're going to write, in the instance of our downtown Brooklyn project, $800 million worth of investment, right? We're going to invest that kind of money, and we're really genuinely thinking about who are the people who are going to get those jobs, right? How will we succeed in creating an equitable investment? What products will we be buying? What choices are we making along the way? Which are just a series of touch points where you can't take any of the investment for granted at this point, right? You realize the spending potential that we have as architects, developers, or working in hospitality space to vote with our purse, right? And support companies that follow the same value set that we care about, or to literally make a difference in someone's life because someone in the community lost a job, and therefore we should have job training established for them and create the opportunity for them, which affords them the ability to connect to our community. And rather than the buildings feeling exclusive, they can feel inclusive, right? And
it's also about using our specifying power, right? I mean, our projects are not at the scale of Jared's. They might be significantly smaller, but even in that context, there are still ample opportunities for us to kind of pursue more values aligned specifications. And I think that part of that has to do with the understanding that not only do these kinds of practices make for good design, they make for good business as well. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's also a little bit about in the design disciplines, our reclassification of what constitutes innovation in a design context. That there are so many opportunities for social entrepreneurship to kind of enter into the way that we think about how design is practiced, right? And I think that it's a different model than maybe the model of innovation that those of us who were trained in a slightly earlier era kind of understood as what comprised innovation in design, right? It's not necessarily about sort of formal novelty. It's not necessarily about kind of design processes. A lot of it has to do with design information. It has to do with social impact. It has to do with sustainability. And those are new categories of information that really require more design energy, more design thinking, right? Because there's so much ground to cover. There's so many opportunities to really rethink the way that architecture and design have historically been practiced.
I mean, I think we've really touched on sort of community, and of course there's the community that you can build in like one of Jared's development projects, but then really thinking about beyond the interiors and thinking about sort of what's happening over the last year in terms of public spaces and how they've been democratized. And we've really all embraced it, right? And it's become sort of, being in New York, it's been like New York's living room is our streets, right? And I know, Michael, that you actually launched Design Advocates and really took that to another level in terms of how do you make public space more accessible for all?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, Design Advocates is a network of mostly independent architecture and design firms who collaborate on projects for the public good. And that, we kind of came together at the beginning of the pandemic to try to connect the dots between some of the very loose governmental guidance and sort of, kind of high level guidance that was coming from a lot of design authorities or public health officials, try to turn them into implementable actions for small businesses and communities in need. And I think that really is a kind of, we've grown to about 200 offices who are participating in this effort. And last year, we've done about 100 projects that kind of fall into this space. And I think that it has really been incredibly instructive to me about the hunger within the design community to find exactly these types of opportunities to bring one's expertise and one's values into a better or kind of more consistent alignment, right? And so in Design Advocates, one of the things that we are doing is kind of exploring how issues of equity and inclusion begin to expand the potential of city programs, like the programs that allow for restaurants in the roadbed and kind of street closures, right? Kind of make sure that those kinds of programs are available and accessible to all New Yorkers and not just the ones in sort of the fancy neighborhoods that have the well-resourced community organizations and the deep pools of volunteers. But we're also trying to prototype ways of working collaboratively and in partnership with communities. So again, sort of redefining maybe for ourselves what we think achievement in design actually looks like, and what the ingredients of achievement are going to include. So it's in a way kind of a way of shifting the idea about the sort of single vision or single author or single kind of design voice, right? Which I think is incredibly important, as kind of Audra is describing. Like the point of view, I think, is still something that is absolutely essential, in the context of design, but to sort of broaden our conception of what that is going to mean, right? So that we can speak kind of collectively, or kind of find consensus, not only among the collaborating designers on a given project, but the way that group of designers is going to work with clients and with communities and with the city at large, and sort of thinking across multiple projects that are kind of concerned with similar issues, and try to find a through line or kind of modes of intelligence that can be translated and sort of like help to propel these kinds of efforts forward. So that it's been a really exciting period, and we're kind of, I think we're at the beginning of something, like we were speaking to the optimism of kind of this period, as the pandemic is sort of moving into a different kind of state, and I think that it's for a lot of designers, it has been about finding these kinds of opportunities, to create these kinds of alignments and to also sort of practice in a slightly different way than we have historically.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like we're experiencing just a real moment of positive change and understanding that the design community can have an impact and should have an impact on what's happening in the greater world. And to Michael's point, I think there is a lot of optimism, especially at this moment in time, because the doors are opening, we're finally going outside, we're potentially taking our masks off, and for an end point, especially for Audra and Jared, because Michael said it so well, but how are you guys really going to be embracing this optimism in the work moving forward?
I think it's optimism, and obviously within the hospitality space, we're thrilled that people are, there's like a strong pent-up desire to travel and to occupy hospitality spaces and to engage with others in that social context. So that's quite thrilling. But another kind of I guess thing that has come out of it for us is this idea of flexibility and how nimble and mobile people have really kind of proven to be. And so the mobility with which and the flexibility with which people are willing to now occupy various spaces, I think is so, as Michael's saying, like it's a place where we can rethink, where we can innovate and where we can infuse new ideas around design and how we plan for those spaces. And, thank you for doing all of the logistical groundwork, Michael, because it's like it pushes people to engage spaces at all kinds of sectors, right? When you have the logistics in place for that and you're pushing forward.
It's interesting, right? I think the architecture, design and hospitality spaces are always really vocal communities, right? They're always desirous of sharing ideas and cross-pollination and collaboration to make for a better place. My development peer set, however, is not in that business. And we are taking this moment to really try to distort the use of the word value within my industry, and to show that having a voice and an opinion and a point of view has much more value in the end, right? We are making buildings that are meant to last 100 years or more. We are participating in broader communities, and we're taking every opportunity we can to show the business case for thoughtful work. And thoughtful is a big and broad word, but I think we can all have our different versions of what that means. And that word also functions at a lot of scale. So we're just trying to distort the use of the word value, which has historically meant just money, and that's just not what it's about.
Well, Michael, Audra, Jared, I want to say thank you guys so much for your time, for your insight, and the contribution that you really are making to the larger community out there. I know it's like baby steps, and I know there's still a lot to be done, but I do know that the community as a whole is really trying to embrace that we could do better. And I think that's one of the positive things that really has probably come out of a negative moment. So thank you guys so much for all the work that you're doing. And I also just want to say a heartfelt thank you to our partners for today, Häfele, who really know how to work with the design community to offer valuable solutions for those creations of those purposeful and thoughtful and functional spaces, which are very important to making sure that we can move forward in really useful spaces. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to DesignTV. Thank you for tuning into this segment of Luxe's Ultimate Kitchen Takeover. My name is Sarah Shelton, and I am the market editor of Luxe Interiors and Design. I'm thrilled to be joined by Patty Dominguez, Vice President of Architect and Design Sales with Cosentino, the international powerhouse of all things kitchen surfaces. Hi, Patty. It is so good to see you, and thank you for gracing us with your presence to talk about this exciting category with us.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Even better that we get to talk about one of my favorite topics in the kitchen, which is beautiful surfaces, of course. So before we dive in, I just wanted to give a little background on Cosentino. I know many people watching are very familiar with the company, but I just want to brag a little bit and highlight a few things, like the fact that Cosentino is a privately held, family-owned business with a deep commitment to heritage, innovation, and sustainability. They have sold millions of slabs that have adorned countless incredible kitchen spaces across the world. And while its materials are distributed to more than, I think it's like 80 countries around the world, the North American market makes up more than 60% of its global sales. So it's safe to say that Cosentino has a strong foothold both around the world and right here in the States, which makes it the powerhouse that it is. And Patty, how long have you been with Cosentino now?
Wow. Well, I might be aging myself, but I have been here for 15 years.
So we're talking to the right person here to really talk about trends and innovations in this space. Starting with trends, I know you shared with us this really interesting statistic that found that countertops stand as the most popular kitchen upgrade, which to me makes total sense, seeing that these surfaces have to perform and stand up to daily use and have to go through like a rigorous, daily kitchen prep and homework space and just general workspace. And they really are a workhorse in the kitchen, but also they're a really huge design element that can really drive the look of a kitchen. So I was just curious, when it comes to surfaces, what are you seeing in the kitchen space? And I know that Cosentino is always thinking outside the box, but I'm curious from your perspective, your very unique perspective, what kind of shift or exciting trends we're seeing with kitchen surfaces?
Thank you. Well, yes, Sarah, one of the things I will say after being having the opportunity to be at Cosentino for this long, I've had the pleasure, I wish I had some to show you right now, of some of the first quartz that came out back 15 years ago. I think when we go back and see them, we look and think, wow, we've come a long way. And but there are certain things that trends, they come back and then they go, as we all know. And behind me, you can see, like, this is my office. We're sitting here in Miami, and we have the whites and the grays that have been so popular and are still so popular in the kitchen space for so many years. But the reality is that the trends and what's really coming is color. Color is back. And I love that, because I think we all can agree that now more than ever, a little pop of color is something that brightens our day. And the color hues that are coming are spectacular. And we at Cosentino really are sort of in that exciting trend of bringing color back and making sure that those hues with solid colors are here, and I think they're going to be here to stay for quite some time. But at the same time that we develop color, the other part that we're really focused on has to do with the touch, with the texture, because it's not just about the color, right? And so we all love when you feel something, and we have a product that feels sort of like suede, but when you touch that, depending on the different, whether it's a matte, but everything that has a little bit more texture seems to really be in the trend of what's coming.
Oh, that's amazing. And news to my ears that color is back, because as an editor, of course, we love color. And it seems like, I think when people see these beautiful, colorful spaces, it kind of gives them this confidence, like, oh, I don't just need a white kitchen, I can go colorful. So, I can't wait to see what you guys have up your sleeve in terms of imagery, of these beautiful kitchen spaces. But going back just recently, I know we just had KBIS, and congrats to you guys. At KBIS, you won the Best in Show for the Decked in Craftisan collection, which is such a huge honor. I know it's coming out in the fall, but I was just wondering, I know it's special. I know this is a really unique launch, and I just wanted to know what makes it so special, and what can it do?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. We were so excited to win that award. It was an honor. And, as it happens with launches, and as we are continuing to develop new colors during this year, we have the Craftisan collection really touches on some of what we just talked about, the nature and those soft hues. And again, those colors that you can pretty much do anything with. It has all of those attributes that Decton has, and we'll talk more a little bit about that. But of course, with the sustainability, that's a big factor there. My favorite color in the Craftisan collection is called Umber, and just wait until you see it. I think you're gonna love it. It's just got that beautiful texture. I look at it and it kind of has a little bit of that clay and a little bit of that look that, again, you can just pretty much match it with anything. And I think it's going to be a great hit. I think people are going to love it. And I think the design community is really thriving for a color like this that they can use as an accent in their kitchen space or anywhere else around the house.
Yeah, the warm colors seem to be really here to stay, you know, moving away from the cools and the grays, and those warm colors I'm really excited about. And speaking of warm, I know that, you know, there's this really fun focus on indoor, outdoor living and how the spaces, you know, a true sign of luxury is, you know, when you can have this fluid space that moves in and out. And Cosentino can make that happen for a designer with the product that you guys have, correct?
Yeah, you know, one thing that's unique about Cosentino, and I'm not really sure that everybody knows this, but as opposed to other brands that focus on quartz, or another brand that maybe focuses on sort of like a porcelain material, with Cosentino, we bring both, and you can utilize, and designers love to be able to have the opportunity to use a Decton that can go from indoor and outdoor. And I'm not now just talking about countertops. This goes as far as your flooring. So imagine that you have the large format tiles in Decton that spread from your living room all the way to the outdoor area. And it just looks, you open your doors and there you are. And you can entertain in and out without that feeling of having to cut your spaces. So it makes your spaces more livable and those beautiful spaces. And then at the same time, we have the outdoor space with the kitchen. And so you can do your outdoor area with Decton because of its durability for outdoors and UV resistance. And at the same time, you can mix match with some Silestone and some Decton interiors, whether it's with a wall or whether it's with your backsplash and your countertops. So with Cosentino, you do have the ability to go to Cosentino and get all of your surfaces for your home in one space.
There has to be a game changer for designers who now are able to take the beautiful design concept that they had for the indoors and carry it so seamlessly. Like you said, it doesn't have to stop, you know, right when you hit the outdoors, that these surfaces can segue into the outdoors, which has to make just a beautiful cohesive space, which I think would make homeowners and designers happy alike.
Yeah.
You mentioned Silestone, and I would love to, you know, focus on that for a minute. That is another fabulous collection that's out now. And for those who haven't seen it, you've got to check it out. I personally love the storytelling aspect of it all, and that it draws inspiration from areas around the world that were these major industrial players in the mid 20th century. I know there's like a neighborhood in New York that one of the pieces is named after, and there's a town in, was it Ireland or London?
Yeah.
And I find that storytelling really fascinating, but can you tell us a little bit more on how this collection came to be?
Yes, and I will say, after 15 years of experiencing with marketing and sales and all of us working together in launching a color, the first time that I saw the Loft collection come to life, I mean, I had chills, but it wasn't just about the beautiful colors. It was about the story. And I think today in our world, we're all just thriving for the experience, right? When you think of something, it's so difficult to put beauty and charm and an experience into just a stone. And so what we do and what our marketing department really thrives on doing is being able to bring that and that storyline to reflect the experience that you might have. So what they did and what we brought to life is bringing some top cities and really some treasures that people don't even know about, like Corktown, Corktown in Detroit. I remember when it came out, I had a dear friend designer, and she called me and she was like, "Oh my God, you guys, how did you know about Corktown? And that color just rocks it. It's amazing." And so it just made me so happy because it resonated to something that is an up and coming area that obviously the people that are there were so excited that we brought a beautiful color to resemble what Corktown in Detroit is. But besides that, we have Nolita and Poblenou, we have Camden, Seaport, and all of those colors are based on different cities, different, not necessarily a city, but definitely like a neighborhood. So it's all about the neighborhood of where you might be, and how that we want to bring you there. And gosh, I think that we were, even though we did not plan that, we were quite lucky to have the opportunity to bring people to life when it comes to an experience in a town where right now we can't go anywhere, right?
I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, what timing that this collection takes people to these neighborhoods and areas around the world in a time when we were very much starved for that sort of travel and experience. And it's funny, you mentioned the Corktown. I had to Google it. I had no idea where it was. I would thought it was in, I don't know where I thought it was, but I was pleasantly surprised to find it was in Detroit. And I feel like I learned so much just by like going through the cities that these, that these designs were pulled from. And I know that these were like industrial hubs. And is that, that industrial inspiration, that's something that you guys are still very much feeling and seeing today?
Yes, it is. And, it's for us, as we were inspiring about this, it's the way of life is such a, you move around and what you are able to experience in these small towns. And with Corktown, especially, one of the things that we realized when, as you just said, is that it wasn't the typical, town that everyone expected to be. And so taking us a little bit outside of our comfort, it's not Soho. Yes, we all know Soho, but Corktown. And, I didn't know this, but my friend Jen actually said, she said, Corktown is sort of like what the meatpacking district was years ago in New York. And so how cool we brought it to life. And again, all of us that are dying to travel and be somewhere, we have the opportunity to be, go see, go to England or go and be in Detroit and experience Corktown through our videos and through our stone.
Absolutely. Yeah. I suggest anyone who hasn't seen it to go check it out. It really is something else. And is there more to come from Silestone, or is there any other exciting, arms there are growth from that collection?
Yeah. Anyone that knows us knows that we're on our feet always. It's like nonstop. And certainly during the pandemic, we were busy. We have two really beautiful collections that are coming. One is called Sunlit, and the other one is called Ethereal. And the Ethereal collection is one that is inspired from our Eternal collection that has a lot of movement. And I will say the Eternal collection at Cosentino is our best-selling colors, and has been now for a few years. And the Ethereal collection is inspired by that, with a newer technology and the ability to have design that has a lot more movement and that feels a lot warmer. So we're very excited. It's going to be interesting to see what Ethereal does once it hits the market, because again, having had the Eternal collection be in our top 5 for the last few years, we'll see what this happens. And then Sunlit is a beautiful collection that's coming out, and it's different, but again, it has a little bit more focus on color, a little bit more of that opportunity to have that industrial little bit of look. And it's really inspired by the Mediterranean. So water and sun, and that's, like, I think there's a storyline behind it, like a lighthouse of, the first lighthouse, or the only lighthouse that's still standing. So wait for that storyline. I think you're going to really love it. I can't say too much. That's why I'm being hesitant, because it's not quite out. So I've got to be a little quiet before I get in trouble with marketing.
Yes, no, I don't want that to happen, but it sounds, I mean, just from the names alone, ethereal and sunlit, those just sound like so evocative of a beautiful space. And again, with the storytelling, inspired by a lighthouse in the Mediterranean or those colors, I think it's so, aside from the beautiful product that you're putting out, to hear the inspiration, the backstory, I think people really resonate with that. And I'm sure that makes the decision-making process even all the more fun when they have that kind of reference, whether it be these industrial hubs or these natural, beautiful destinations.
I love the way designers get inspired, right? I'm not a designer, obviously, but I love the fact that everything comes from a mood board, and everything, when you're talking to a designer, they bring their life, their experience, and they talk to their customer about what's important to them. And then they bring it to life. And sometimes I think when we created all of these collections, that's been part of our experience, is to think, how can we bring it back home? How can we transfer it to be a way of life? How can we transfer it to be something that's close to your heart, that you can then tell the story at home, or when you're sitting in your countertop in your kitchen, you can bring all of that together and be inspired by whether it's the sun or the water from the Mediterranean in the way of sunlit, or from more of that natural stone look, whatever it is that you desire.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think more than ever, people want things in their homes that tell a story. They want to know where it was made, or how it was made, or how it came to be, whether that's a chair or a piece of art, or better yet, a kitchen surface. And aside from just aesthetics and beauty, I know people also really care about sustainability, which I know, Patty, you're very passionate about, and Cosentino is very passionate about. I know it's been in your DNA for quite some time. You guys are not, just following along a green trend. And I'm just curious,
yes,
what's new on that front? If you guys have any important initiatives that you're kicking off, or just catch us up to speed on that sector of Cosentino.
Thank you, Sarah, for asking that question, because it is, for me, it's something that I absolutely love, and I love to talk about. And I'll tell you why. About 10 years ago, I had the unbelievable experience to travel with a reporter who was from the New York Times, who challenged us because we brought out a Silestone collection called Eco by Cosentino. And when we launched that, it was all about, we really talked about the whole recycled component. Well, he didn't believe that we were as green or recycle friendly or environmentally friendly as we said we were. So he came, and it was one of those people very difficult to travel with. He and I are buddies now, so I can say that, but I won't say his name. And he was very serious. And I mean, I gave him wine, I did everything I could, and there was no smiles until we got to the factory. And he looked and he walked around, and we went and we saw our solar panels and the quarries, and we went everywhere. And it still, he was just like, he couldn't find anything wrong. And he finally cracked a smile when he met Paco Cosentino. And Paco said to him, he said, I don't know anything about the trends. This is the way I live my life. And this is the way being environmentally friendly, and my company, and recycling my water and the reuse of it. That's the way we live in this town. This isn't because it's a new fad. And I don't know anything about it. It was natural for me. And so it was so important for me to hear that, because, it's one thing, I'm one of those people that I can't lie about. It's like, if it's not natural, then it's very difficult to sell something and act like, oh, really? Kind of, yes, but not really. And then with Cosentino, that's just the way it is. And so what's new with us is we are increasing the amount of our recycled components in Silestone. So we're launching a new product, a new aesthetic in Silestone that's called Hybric and Hybric Plus. Okay. And with Hybric Plus, it contains at least 20% more recycled content than it ever has before. And that's new. And all the new series that I just talked about all have So that's exciting. The Sunlit Connect collection is actually carbon neutral. So we just talked about, being the sunlit and the Mediterranean inspiration, and that is carbon neutral. And we're compensating all emissions generating in producing this particular series. So that is important to us. That's something that's new and innovative and that we were able to do this past year. In Decton, all of our Decton is carbon neutral. So 99% of the water that is used to do Decton is all reused.
Wow.
Everything is reused, and all of our energy does come from renewable sources. We are developing, this is to me so exciting because like I said, I got to see it in the quarries with the panels, but we're developing the largest solar plant of self-consumption of an industrial company in all of Spain.
Oh
So
my goodness.
that's going to be really something very interesting and something that will be amazing for us to be able to give tours and show you guys about. And last but certainly not least, we are reducing the amount of raw material that we use by about 3% for every slab. And for everyone that knows right now, the raw material is such a key point and something that it's the reality is that there's such lack of. So us being able to reduce it by this percentage is a big deal. So we're very excited about some of those things that are happening.
As you should be. I mean, it sounds like we could do an entire segment on just the sustainability features that you guys have in place. But I think it just goes to show the level that you guys are performing, that you not only have beautiful product, but it's made with sustainability at top of, at a top priority. And so I think that's the best of both worlds, when you can have this beautiful product and know that it was made in a smart and safe way. And I can just picture a proud homeowner of their, recently redesigned kitchen, touching the surface and feeling so good, and knowing that it was made in such a way, and it also can stand up to daily use and also be good, better for the environment. So, you guys are setting the bar, and we'll have to just keep up to speed on all that you guys are rolling out. So congrats on all of those initiatives.
Paco Cosentino always told us, when you meet him again, but he always starts all of our conversations, all of our meetings. He's such a humble, amazing guy, but he will always start talking about safety and the people. And those are it doesn't matter what presentation and to who he's talking to, but safety and our people is what he always talks about. And when we talk about safety, Hybrid and Hybrid Plus are two products that you will see, and how important it has been for him to revolutionize something that is safer, and that we continue to focus on that with the environment. So thank you for asking that. It's something obviously that's very close to our heart.
I think that's wonderful. And yes, you guys are setting the bar. And I think that, I hope a lot of people take note, and hopefully will also follow suit. And speaking of leading the way, it's hard to believe that we're already this far into 2021. And just to wrap up, just curious, what is next for Cosentino this year and beyond? Of course, many things I know are in the pipeline, and we have a lot to look forward to in the fall with the Craftism collection. But what do you guys have in the works, or what are you excited for? I do know, I heard a little birdie tell me that there's a designer program in the works, which I think a lot of our designers who are watching will be really excited about.
Yes, I thought you'd never ask. What can I say? My passion, my role, and what I've done my entire career with Cosentino has been involved with the design community. And what's amazing is I'll start by saying we have new product offerings besides what we talked about with our launch line. We have some new product offerings. We have a new bath collection that's coming out. We also have more of our tile that is coming out. In fact, it's an opportunity for designers to work closely, be able to purchase tile in the large format that we will have in stock. And we also have a new product called Optima. Optima is basically, in a nutshell, an optimized size of a slab of Decton that you can use in a smaller, but in a 4 millimeter. So you can imagine cladding, for example, a wall or showers. A very easy installation, a lot less expensive, but it has the beauty of Decton, all of the attributes of Decton in a way that you can use it around the home, and that it's really thin, thin enough that cabinet manufacturers, some of the German, Italian, and some of the North American manufacturers we've been talking to are using it for their doors. So cladding cabinet manufacturers are using 4 millimeter Decton with their design of their doors. So very excited about that. Outdoors, you can imagine this is something that's not new to anyone, but outdoors has gone beyond being an outdoor grill. It's an outdoor experience. Being able to have the fireplace with the large format Decton, as well as use of all of our space in a better way for design with Decton, and with our outdoor just everything that we can do collectively with a design to use for outdoor spaces. So outdoors is something we're really focused on, bringing the correct materials with some of the Decton that we talked about, plus, and again, I can't get in too much trouble, but 2 more Decton launches will be happening, whether it's at the end of the year or at the beginning. And they are some really exciting lines that are going to come out and really focused on the outdoor spaces. And last, not least, and actually my all-time favorite, is the CTOP program. So I am proud to say that I'm running this program for North America, and it is a designer program that we have developed. And really the best way to say it is, we want to be closer to you. We want to be closer to our designers who we've worked with for years, but to give you a platform digitally that you can call and make it your home base. You can order your samples, you can be inspired by product, you can make some money. We all like to do that. And at the same time, just be connected with Cosentino, be the first one to have all of our launches. And as we say, the only limit when it comes to our materials is your imagination. And for me, I think CTOP is going to be the best way for us all to be connected. And I cannot wait to launch that. And that will happen this summer, probably July, August.
Wow. I mean, just when I thought that you guys were already very busy, it sounds like there's even more exciting things to look forward to. And I love that you ended on that quote. I'm going to repeat it. The only limit when it comes to our materials is your imagination. And I think that, when we were talking earlier about the use of Cosentino, whether that's on the floor or the surface or the outside, you had me at cabinets. Like, that blows my mind that it's that thin to be used on cabinetry. I mean, you guys are really just kind of thinking outside the box, and like the segment's called, like, thinking beyond the surface. You guys are thinking beyond the surface when it comes to creativity and application and sustainability, and working with designers in really, marrying this form and function. And so I feel like now I'm leaving with tons of inspiration and information. And I know that everyone watching is going to leave with the same. So Patty, thank you so much for indulging us today with all of this inspiration and information. It has been such a pleasure. I know we will be watching very closely to see what you guys are up to next. This has been very, very fun.
Thank you, Sarah. I thank you for your friendship. Thank you for all that you all do for the design community and for the partnership that you guys have with us at Cosentino. We love working with you and are truly humbled and grateful for having the opportunity to spend this time with you today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, we'll do this again. It's been fun.
I hope so.
Take care, Patty. Thank you.
Bye.